Right, time to take a look at what's grabbing headlines here in France. And I'm joined on set by Clément Bonnereau. Good morning, Clément.
Good morning.
And we're starting with the big story of the day, Hurricane Irma and the trail of destruction that it's left on the French island of Saint-Martin.
That's right. Take a look at the front page of Catholic paper La Croix. Après l'ouragan, les plaies ouvertes. After the hurricane, wounds are open. And you see here this photo, a man walking amid the rubble in the town of Marigot, the largest town in Saint-Martin. The paper reminds us that the island has been among the worst hit by Hurricane Irma, which has killed at least 10 people in the French part of the island and destroyed hundreds of buildings. Many are still in shock and actually considering leaving the island for good, fearing for their own safety, La Croix reports. One resident interviewed in the article says that what terrorised him most was not the hurricane itself, but the chaos, the violence that followed, and in particular the widespread looting, which saw dozens of shops being vandalised over the weekend.
Now, authorities are coming under fire because they've been accused of not doing enough to prevent violence.
That's right. There've been rumours of looters armed with machetes, dangerous criminals escaping from prison, and attacks against white people, causing a wave of panic and fear on the island. And authorities have indeed been accused of being too slow to respond. Le Figaro reports that 240 elite troops have been deployed to the island to try to calm the population. But many residents are denouncing a lack of resources, leaving the island in a state of complete chaos, they say.
OK, and many people are accusing the government of not being sufficiently prepared to deal with natural disasters of this scale.
Absolutely. Le Figaro says that the government had been warned weeks in advance of the potential risk posed by the hurricane season. The paper criticises the ecology minister, Nicolas Hulot, for failing to act and making rather clumsy comments over the weekend. He said on Saturday, there are times when events are beyond our control, not quite what you'd expect a political leader to say, writes Le Figaro. The government, however, rejects all criticism, saying that adequate measures have been taken to protect residents of Saint Martin and provide emergency food and health supplies. We also learn in Le Monde that Macron will travel to Saint Martin on Tuesday to try and appease tensions. He'll meet with both local officials and residents of the island.
OK, well, speaking of Emmanuel Macron, he's facing growing criticism here in mainland France as two of the country's main unions call for mass protests on Tuesday against the government's labour reforms.
Indeed, you can read the headline on the front page of business daily Les Echos this morning. It reads, Macron faces his ultimate test. It's the first time that a mass protest has been called since Macron came to power last May. The paper, however, argues that attendance is likely to be quite low. That's because unions are divided. Two have actually stopped short of calling for strikes. This despite calling the reform disappointing. The opposition is also fragmented. The main left-wing and right-wing parties are in tatters, and other parties have struggled to provide a clear alternative to the proposed reforms.
OK, well, still Tuesday's protest could be very damaging for Macron.
That's right. Macron's popularity has slumped in recent weeks, and Liberal daily L'Opinion says that the president should be careful not to launch too many reforms at once and adopt a slightly more conciliatory attitude. Students, railway workers, local officials, many are waiting to catch him out, writes the paper. Communist paper L'Humanité, meanwhile, warns that lazy people will rise up against the government in a reference to comments Macron made in Athens over the weekend, vowing not to give in to opponents, which he says includes, I quote, extremists, cynics and lazy people. And I'll end on a lighter note with this cartoon from L'Opinion. You see here the leader of the left-wing France Unbowed movement, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, and Philippe Martinez, the leader of the CGT, one of France's most powerful unions. They're standing next to a box full of explosives, and Jean-Luc Mélenchon asks, do you have a lighter? So we're headed towards a very explosive season indeed.
We're bracing ourselves for that. Clément, thank you so much for that press review there, and you'll be back a little bit later on today.